You're not my mother. I don't know this woman. Someone get her away from my office. And the next time you allow a stranger in my office, you will be fired.
A fishmonger gave up everything she owned so her daughter could become somebody. When success finally came, the daughter looked her mother in the eye, in front of a room full of people, and pretended she didn't know her. Watch till the end, because what she found out weeks later will change how you see sacrifice forever. Before sunrise, Jamestown was already awake. Fishing canoes rocked against the shore, nets were pulled in heavy and glistening, and the smell of smoked tilapia drifted over the narrow streets that ran down to the Accra coastline. Life there moved with the tide. Not easy, but familiar. Madame Grace had sold fish at that harbor for over 20 years. Every morning she waited at the water's edge as the boats came in, haggled with the fishermen, then carried her basin on her head to the market, calling out prices in a voice that carried over the noise of gulls and generators. Her hands were rough. Her back had started to bend from decades of carrying weight it was never meant to carry alone. But she never complained, because she had one reason to keep going. Her daughter, Abena. "Abena," she called one morning, "come and eat before you go." A sharp-eyed girl rushed out, books already under her arm. "Mama, I'm coming. You go read today?" "I have to, Mama. I don't want to sell fish forever." Grace paused only slightly. Not fish, just more than this. She understood. She had understood from the moment Abena was old enough to ask questions instead of just accepting answers. One afternoon, Abena came running with a letter in her hand, an admission to study law in the city. Grace read it slowly, her eyes catching the fee at the bottom of the page. Silence sat between them, heavy the way only unaffordable numbers can be. That evening, Grace sat alone by her small table, staring at the one thing of value she had left, the coral beads passed down from her own mother, kept for a daughter's wedding day one distant year. She held them a long time before she made her decision. The next morning she wore her cleanest cloth and walked to town. She came back without the beads but with enough money for the first term. "Mama, where did you get this?" "Don't worry yourself," Grace said. "Go and become somebody. That's enough for me." What Abena never knew was that the beads were only the beginning. Behind that quiet transaction was something bigger, the small parcel of coastal land Grace's late husband had left her, the only security she had for her old age. She sold that too, piece by piece, over the years that followed, and never once told her daughter the true cost of her freedom. The city didn't slow down for anyone, and Abena refused to let it slow her down either. Law school was brutal. Long nights, missed meals, moments she wanted to quit. But she kept a picture in her mind, her mother at the harbor before sunrise, basin on her head, refusing to stop. She graduated with honors. Then came the internship, then the associate position at one of Accra's most respected law firms. Then, faster than anyone expected, her own name on the letterhead, Abena Mensah, partner. At first, she remembered where she came from. She sent money home every month, called every Sunday, visited when she could. But the calls grew shorter. The visits grew rarer. New colleagues asked about her background at dinners and cocktail receptions, and "my mother sells fish in Jamestown" started to feel like the wrong answer in rooms full of people discussing portfolios and international clients. She began saying, "My family is from the coast," instead, technically true, carefully incomplete. Grace noticed the silence stretching longer between calls. She didn't complain. She simply decided, one quiet afternoon, that if her daughter could not come to her, she would go to her daughter. The law firm's building rose in glass and steel above Accra's business district, nothing like anywhere Grace had ever stood. She wore her best cloth, tied her headscarf with care, and walked in with the same quiet dignity she carried at the harbor every single morning of her life. "I'm here to see my daughter," she told the receptionist. "Abena." "Which Abena? Do you have an appointment, madam?" "She's my daughter, please. Just tell her Grace is here." Upstairs, in the middle of a meeting with two of the firm's biggest clients, Abena's assistant leaned in and whispered the name. Abena's polished smile held for exactly 1 second too long. She excused herself and came down, each step measured, her professional mask already sliding into place. Grace's face lit up the moment she saw her. "My daughter." But Abena stopped a full stride away, close enough to be seen handling the situation, far enough that no one would assume a relationship. The clients had followed her down out of curiosity, phones half lifted, watching. "Can I help you, madam?" Abena said. "Abena? It's me. It's Mama." Abena's jaw tightened. In that room full of watching eyes, everything she had built suddenly felt fragile, and she made her choice in less than a second. "You're not my mother," she said, quiet and clipped. "I don't know this woman. Someone get her away from my office." Grace didn't argue. She didn't cry out. She simply looked at her daughter, searching, the way a mother searches a child's face for a sign that it was all a mistake, and found nothing. She adjusted her cloth, turned, and walked out with her back straight, the same dignity intact that had carried her through every hard morning at the harbor. Word moves quietly but surely in Accra. One of the clients in that lobby that day had grown up in Jamestown himself, and he knew exactly who Grace was, the woman who had once given his own family fish on credit during a hard season and never once asked twice for payment. Within weeks, a major contract Abena's firm had been chasing quietly fell through. Then another client, citing vague concerns about fit, walked away from a partnership months in the making. Abena couldn't understand why doors that had been open were suddenly closing. Then, going through old family paperwork to settle her mother's remaining land taxes, a duty she still performed by mail, without much thought, she found something she had never seen. A stack of old sale documents, her mother's coral beads. A parcel of coastal land sold off in pieces over 11 years, every sale dated suspiciously close to a school fee, a book, a moving cost, a bar exam registration. She sat with the papers for a long time, the truth arriving slower than it should have. It wasn't only fish that had put her through school, it was everything her mother owned. And that was the moment Abena understood there was only one place left for her to go. She drove to Jamestown herself, past the smoked tilapia stalls, past the canoes resting on the sand, until she found her mother exactly where she always was, at the water's edge, basin balanced against her hip, waiting for the boats to come in. Grace looked up, no shock, only quiet recognition, the way she recognized the tide. "Mama," Abena said, and her voice broke on the word the way it hadn't broken in that glass lobby. Boo-hoo. She didn't rush to embrace her. She stood there and let the silence hold what it needed to hold. "I didn't just deny knowing you," Abena said. "I denied everything you gave up so I could stand in that building at all. I told people I built my life myself. I forgot the person who sold everything she had, piece by piece, so I could." Grace studied her daughter the way she used to study the sky before a boat went out, reading what was coming. "Money and land, I can live without," she said finally. "I have lived without before, but you stood in front of people and said you didn't know me. That is the debt that matters, Abena, not what I sold, what you denied." Abena knelt right there in the sand, the same sand she used to run across barefoot as a girl on her way to school. "Let me repay both," she said, "what you gave and the truth I owe you." Grace reached down and lifted her daughter's chin, the way she used to when Abena was small and afraid of the water. "Then get up," she said, "and let it be the last time you ever deny where you came from. Sometimes, the hands that gave you your beginning are the ones we're quickest to hide once we think we no longer need them." Subscribe for more stories like this one.